Well, good evening. It is great to see the hearty. After you've had one earthquake in the morning and an aftershock, all you need is some cherry blossoms, and we feel like we're right back in Japan. So it's really great to be in the house. I think it says something when literally we've had the world shake in many different ways. It's a busy week in the world, and I'm really glad that you're here with us tonight. I'm really excited about the conversation today. I'm hoping that this is not just a very interesting opportunity to explain some great things that are happening, some of the great artists and the work that's going on, but this is a beginning of a longer-term conversation. I think many of you know, if this is not your first time, that this is the Japan House, and I hope you will make this your house. It's a place that we are proud of being privileged with arts and culture, business and policy, and education as well, and I think tonight you actually combine all of those together in many different ways, and I want to thank those that made it possible. I think you know the title of why you're here. It's Possible Baby, Impossible. Arts, Ethics, and Biology, which is a combination of so many different things that are important. Given that it's Japan Society, I have to filibuster a little bit because I see people still coming in. But those of you that are here, and it's great to have an intimate and exclusive conversation. So we're going to hear from the artist herself, Ai Hasegawa. I'm looking forward to that. And of course, we have Ilene Gutman from the National Museum of Women and the Arts exhibition, which is going to be the New World Women to Watch 2024, and about the vision of the artist and the kind of unique opportunity. I understand this is the first time there's had a Japanese artist as part of this program, so I'm really excited to be able to host you here in New York. We're not quite Washington. Next week, the entire world will be focused in U.S., Japan, and Washington with Prime Minister Kishida's visit, but we are, I think, the capital of culture in many ways, so we're pretty proud of the art we have here in New York. Our moderator for tonight will be the one and only Ayako Weissman, so it's great to have you back in the house. I want to thank the sponsors for this event, which is Horizons Kinetics LLC, and of course, the National Museum of Women in the Arts Japan Committee. So my job is very simple. I get to introduce the great speakers, and then I hand things over to somebody more important than me. All I have to do is introduce Weissman-san, because she's the co-chair of the National Museum of Women in the Arts Japan Committee. She's also the senior vice president and senior portfolio manager and director of Asia Strategy at Horizon Kinetics. That's a lot of titles you have there, so good for you. But before I begin, I also want to thank my team at Talks Plus and Tomomi Sekiya, who helped make all this happen. I also hope that you get a chance after you're done here even to check out the Zen show that was just featured in the New York Times yesterday. I think the world could really use a little bit more Zen and mindfulness and intentionality. So if you have an opportunity when you're having the reception, tell them that I told you it's okay. They won't charge you. Go upstairs, check out the Zen show at the same time. It's 2 for the price of 1. So before I begin, I'd like to welcome Ms. Noriko Kashiwagi to the podium. She's a dear friend and somebody that we consider family at Japan Society. To make a few remarks, Ms. Kashiwagi is the director of the art platform in Tokyo and also the co-chair of the National Museum of Women in the Arts Japan Committee. So Noriko-san, let me hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us here at the Japan Society. I'm Noriko Kashiwagi, co-chair of NMWA, or National Museum of Women in the Arts Japan Committee. It's a pleasure to be back at this venue, a venue which holds special significance for me due to my decades-long involvement with the Japan Society. Before anything, I want to extend my gratitude to our sponsors, sponsors of NMWA, many of whom are also dedicated supporters of the Japan Society. Your contributions have made everything possible. Now, while the art world is often perceived as a realm of freedom, fairness, and meritocracy, the reality begs to differ. In the United States, although almost half of all artists are women, in 2018, only 13% of major art museum collection featured female artists. Furthermore, in 2022, only 10% of the top 500 auctioned artworks worldwide were created by women. When it comes to top 50 artworks auctioned, none, 0%, were done by women artists. Studies have shown biases against female artists, with prices for their works undervalued compared to their male counterparts. So much so that even AI-generated art are priced lower when attributed to female creators. The situation of the art world back in Tokyo is the same, if not worse. As the saying goes, culture is a mirror of our society. Despite our aspiration for openness, fairness, unconscious biases shaped by historical norms and preconceptions persist, and this limit our viewpoints. For the past 40 years, NMWA has dedicated itself to providing awareness to this imbalance by spotlighting overlooked women artists through initiatives like Women to Watch group exhibitions. Committees across the globe, including ours, work hard to showcase artists from the regions, promoting gender equity and diversity through the arts. When I'm asked why we should care about arts in this society, I often emphasize the important role of artists as storytellers. Through their creations, these storytellers reflect our times, places, emotions, thoughts, in short, the whole of human experiences. Female artists in particular can offer unique perspectives of women and enrich our understanding of the world. Ai Hasegawa, who is here with us tonight, will be participating in the Women to Watch exhibition in Washington, D.C. as the first Japan's representative. I'm eager for her to share her narrative with us, adding her voice to the chorus of storytellers that shapes our cultural landscape. Thank you once again for your warm welcome and support.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I am Ayako Weissman, one of the co-chairs of the NMWA Japan Committee, along with a previous speaker, Noriko Kashiwagi. It is my pleasure to welcome tonight's speaker, Ilene Gutman and Ai Hasegawa. Ilene Gutman is the Deputy Director of National Museum of Women in the Art since 2008. She is a New Jersey native and the graduate of a Parsons School of Design, a new school in New York City. She began her career as an illustrator, and her works has been published in many distinguished publications, including the New York Times and Washington Post. Her career took a 180-degree turn into the world of intellectual property research when she joined a startup called Computer Mark USA. A classic American success story, the firm was sold, and in 1998, Ilene decided to return to the art world by joining staff of National Museum of Women in the Art. She has been instrumental in building domestic and international committee, and that's how Noriko and I came to know her. Ilene was going to speak about museum and its mission, as well as Seventh Women's to Watch group exhibition. The second speaker is Japanese artist Ai Hasegawa. Her work, Impossible Baby, was selected to be shown in the Seventh Women's to Watch group exhibition at NMWA in Washington, D.C. She was born in Shizuoka Prefecture and studied animation and media at Institute of Advanced Media Art and Science in Gifu Prefecture in Japan. She receives her MA in Royal College of Art in Britain and MS from MIT, where she worked as a research fellow in the renowned MIT Media Lab. Her work has been shown in and outside of Japan, and her work, Impossible Baby, has won Excellent Award at Work Art Division in the 19th Japan Media Art Festival in 2015. Ai-san will be speaking about this piece and discussing her exploration of complex ethical questions facing today's society when it comes to genetics and human reproduction through art. Let me introduce you to the first speaker, Ilene Gutman. Eileen, please take the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. It's a great pleasure to be here and a privilege. And I'm thrilled to have met several of you already, and I look forward to meeting more of you after our talk. And I just want to extend an invitation to all of you to come to Washington and see the museum for yourself. So when I say NMWA, that is the acronym for National Museum of Women in the Arts. It's a terrible acronym, but that's what you'll hear me say over and over again. Since opening our doors in 1987, the National Museum of Women in the Arts has been a symbol and gathering space for the cause of advancing gender equity in the art world. Through historical and contemporary exhibitions, programs, and outreach, as well as its bold collection, the museum advocates for the profound necessity of inclusivity. We have about 6,000 works in the collection from the 16th century to the present, and most of our collecting now, of course, is contemporary art. The Women's Museum, located 2 blocks from the White House in Washington, continues to welcome new perspectives and champion women artists who are paving a way forward for all. I want to share just a few post-pandemic stats from our website to help explain why our museum exists. Women's representation is much better than 35 years ago when NMWA first opened, but it is far from equal. People want to believe that we're reaching parity at a more rapid rate than we actually are, not just in the art world, but in society at large. As these statistics make clear, there is still much work to be done in the art world, as in other parts of the social landscape, and NMWA is helping lead the way. NMWA's founder, Mrs. Wilhelmina Cole Holliday, recognized the power of art and the importance of women in art in the world. She was a force. She really was way ahead of her time. She and her husband began collecting works of art in the 1950s, and it wasn't until one time in Europe in a museum she saw a still life by the artist Clara Peters. And she was very taken by the work, came back to Washington, went through her own library, didn't see anything on Clara Peters, went to the National Library of Congress, the largest library in the United States, and not only found nothing on Clara Peters, she didn't find a single art book that had anything about any woman artist. So then the light bulb went off, and she decided from then on she was going to collect works by women. In the wake of the women's movement, she wanted to bring women artists into the mainstream, and the museum she created is a major player impacting the cultural thinking of our time. But in order to really make a difference in the global crisis of gender inequity in art, Mrs. Holliday felt that the museum needed to be on the ground in places, let's see something here, go back, in places far beyond the walls of Washington, D.C. This is why she created the NMWA Outreach Committees, now located in 31 regions across the U.S. and in Canada, Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and South America. These outreach committees promote NMWA and the women artists in their regions through public programs, artist events, studio visits, exhibitions, and fundraising. They are all volunteers. You heard from Noriko Kashiwagi, co-chair of the Japan Committee of NMWA. The Japan Committee has been an invaluable addition to the museum's global network. On screen are images from just a few of the major programs and events that Noriko and the committee have organized to raise awareness for gender equity. After a landmark 2.5-year renovation in our historic building, the building was built in 1907, and it was the home of the Masons, our museum doors reopened to the public just this past October. We were honored to hear from First Lady Jill Biden at one of our reopening gatherings. A longtime admirer of the museum, Dr. Biden spoke about women's lives and creativity, saying, quote, "We deserve to tell our stories, to be a part of the history museums tell. and to have a place to come together, listen, and join in kinship and community. Inside these walls, women's art has space to breathe and shine. Okay, now I have just a 90-second video I'm going to show you. That's our place. Oops. Okay. New Worlds. That is the name of our new Women to Watch exhibition, and it is the 7th edition of this series. And the first one was in 2008. It's a series organized by our museum in collaboration with our outreach committees. It's designed to platform underrepresented women artists working today all over the world. The NMWA committees introduce our museum to curators and artists in their respective regions. One artist from every committee region is then selected to participate in the Women to Watch exhibition at our institution. Next week, we will open our 7th Women to Watch, New Worlds 2024. It gathers artists from 28 regions around the globe, and for the first time, thanks to new committees in these regions, we are proud to include Women to Watch from Asia, including Japan, and as well as the Middle East and the U.S. Pacific Northwest. Each Women to Watch has a unique theme. New Worlds gathers contemporary artists from around the globe who are reimagining the past, present, and alternate realities. They offer a response to these extraordinary times. My colleagues, Senior Curator Ginny Traynor and Associate Curator Aureen Zara, are the co-curators of New Worlds. After selecting the representing artists for this exhibition, they identified a number of sub-themes to the show. Disrupting gender. Artist Marina Vargas of Spain, Ana Maria Hernando, representing Colorado, Hanan Abu Hussein, representing Israel, and Rhonda Maroufi of France, all create work that resists the flattening of women by oppressive ideals of power and beauty. Migration and placemaking. Saskia Jorda of Arizona, Graciela Arias from Peru, and Amy Papazian of Arkansas explore concepts of placemaking, a process that occurs when people carve out new spaces for themselves, either when they're forced to relocate or when they intentionally settle into a new environment. Ecology. Sarah Ortegon Highwalking, representing Wyoming, Sophia Pompery of Germany, and Noemi Goodall from the UK interrogate ideas of human relationships with the environment. Whereas Highwalking calls for greater harmony with nature, Pompery points to the futility of surveying our impact without acting on it, and Goodall considers how humans perceive their own influence on geologic time. And chronologies. April Banks, representing Southern California, Mona Cliff from the greater Kansas City area, and Nikki Green of Northern California rethink conventional ways of conceptualizing time, ancestry, and history, be it through Banks' illuminated glasswork that looks back and forward at the same time, Cliff's indigenous beaded pollution protective equipment, or Green's recreation of Jewish ritual relics, so as to include trans and non-binary participants. Technology. Soon we will hear directly from Ai Hasegawa. But I'm going to let her address the remarkable role that technology plays in her practice, and will instead share two of Ai's co-exhibitors who are also experimenting with science and tech in a new world. Amanda Fingbadipakya, excuse me for the pronunciation, of New York uses coded computers to present near-future bioethical scenarios. Visitors to her installation of New Worlds will be given choices to select and confront possible dilemmas in a volatile future. Mariana Dixon Williams of Georgia will exhibit an audio work she created in the Arctic Circle, which slowly erodes away with each listen. Communal world building. Molly Vaughn, representing Washington State, and Rajyashri Gudi, representing India, consider how their group identities might grapple with past oppression while moving into the future. Vaughn makes garments that honor trans women who have been killed, which are worn in special memorial performances. Gudi creates ceramic pieces that honor the rich food culture of the Dalit community, once referred to as untouchables in the India caste system. As you can see, New Worlds threads together an incredible array of exigent topics. It is an exhibition that extols the objective of Women to Watch and the mission of our museum. And it gives voice to women in a world that, even in 2024, continues to challenge their right to hold space. I want to thank Noriko Kashiwagi for founding and leading the Japan Committee of NMWA, Ayako Weissman for supporting the establishment of the Japan Committee of NMWA, artist Ai Hasegawa, who we are fortunate to hear from today, and who I am pleased to be in conversation with, the Japan Society for hosting us and partnering on this event, specifically President and CEO Joshua Walker, Japan Society board member and early supporter of this event, Eri Kakuta, and head of event management and director of talks for the Japan Society, Tomomi Sakiya. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ai Hasegawa.
Hi, I'm Ai Hasegawa, and then today I'm planning to introduce some of my art pieces where technology holds significant meaning. Before introducing the main pieces that will be exhibited at the NMWA, I would like to introduce some of my related works. So I want to deliver a dolphin. So about this work, actually, this is also about reproduction. So having children seems very simple, but yet today, it's really quite difficult issue. And then actually so many dilemmas. And then in this chart, I set aside possibility for a moment and then fertilized about what would make me happy. I cannot become a vegetarian, like I'm eating fish, and then how can I become a vegetarian? And then I realized that most food is someone's child. Maybe I could change my perspective when I give birth to something that I considered food from my own body. And so in my case, I thought it would be nice if I could become a surrogate mother for marine creatures that are on the brink of extinction due to human dietary habit. For others who might not share this sentiment, I propose pet or other endangered species. And the mouse dolphin is known as the world's smallest dolphin and it's very cute with its round dorsal fin. However, research from 10 years ago indicated that there were only 55 adult individuals left. So they sometimes died after getting caught in the fishing net. Then I have shifted to sci-fi way of thinking. In the future of synthetic biology, it's possible that something called a human placenta, which connect humans and dolphins, might be developed. It might also be possible to synthesize the first milk too. Then giving birth under the water, and then feed the first milk, then swim together. Then this can be viewed online, so please take a look if you have a time. And then, by the way, it was filmed in the Lava Hotel in Tokyo. So, well, it has a nice swimming pool. And then now I'm gonna talk about the Impossible Baby project. This project will be exhibited at the NMWA in April 14th to August 11th. Then actually in 2013, several Western countries, including those in Europe, began to legally allow same-sex marriage, but not in Japan yet, unfortunately. Then some people might start considering having children. Then anyway, so in this year, I returned to Japan, and then I saw this news about ethics committee report. It is about like guidelines on the freezing and then preservation of unfertilized egg and then ovarian tissues. So anyway, this means like a single woman able to freeze the egg, your own egg. Well, before that, we had only married people able to do that. Anyway, so can you see these committee names? And it's only one female out of 12. So these people deciding the, ethics. And then anyway, they also asked the public comment. And then maybe you can see only 20 people. And then how can you say this is a public comment? So then, well, meanwhile, a researcher who made bold claims stated in 2015 that it might be possible within 2 years for two men to have children together. Well, it hasn't been achieved in humans yet, but research in the stem cell field theoretically suggests that it's possible for same-sex couples to make children. However, it was also mentioned in a book related to iPS cells that ethical barrier would likely stand in the way. Who will decide on the ethics on such experiment? If it's about the social norms, then it would seem unfair not to include a much larger group, more than just 20 people, and then especially one that has less bias, and then include the opinions of those who actually need these technologies. I was curious about what the actual ethical issues were. So yeah, who decide? So when we discuss such a technology, asking by the text like, what do you think about the technology for same-sex couples to have children becoming possible in the near future? Or say there is a real married couple and I ask them to share some of their genetic information, and then we will use the data to produce a random genetic profile of their children. This is the kind of system I used to make, and this is the kind of report, part of the report of the babies. And then from such a kind of report, I try to estimate or like speculate their facial shape. or like skin tones, or like hair is curly or straight, or like what kind of food they would like. And then, so when I produce a family photo in this way, this image raised our question that we should not develop this technology that is equal to like this family or these children shouldn't exist. So how would you explain to someone that they mustn't exist? So actually this is about like 10 years birthday party. So they are kind of playing with the fire because their character is quite active. So actually so this project, NHK helped me to make a documentary film and then broadcast. And then actually, I finally able to meet this researcher who created bimaternal mouse, Kaguya, in 2004. Then at the time, he said, this technology cannot use for human being. And then I wondered why for a long time. And actually, this is his answer. So basically, he was kind of saying, this is not medical treatment. And also in my interview, he was also saying that this is this question is more about like, why do you believe in a God? So it's not a kind of logical question. So then that conversation gonna be kind of going nowhere. So I wondered, is it good reason to, for this question? And anyway, one more researcher, he said like this. So basically, yeah, he is kind of agree about this. And then, so after the broadcast, actually more than 650 people discussed. And then I picked up a few interesting comments. This is kind of interesting. Yeah, I think it makes sense. So usually I asked you the Twitter comment, but actually I found out like people more active in the post-it, especially in the museum space. And then I found out because of actually this is in Indonesia, and then of course we are kind of scared about like using the Twitter, and then well anyway it was quite nice discussion happened, and then tons of comment was, yeah. And then actually this comment was actually quite active in the Italy and Indonesia. Yeah, actually the comments got angry at reactions, but actually in Japan, not at all. So then after that, like a generative AI kind of technology make her more alive. So then actually I didn't show the comment, and this comment actually someone asked me like, why not about the data baby? So then actually these days with the AI technology, you may be able to make a baby from the DNA, and then maybe it's a talkative, and then like, interesting question. And anyway, so this is the latest my project. It's about artificial womb. And then, so in the 50 years in Tokyo, what if we have artificial womb? And then if it is provided to everyone, like for free, like once, then maybe Tokyo government gonna be, support this system. And then if it's so, what's going on? And then I try to use the kind of live action role-playing style, and then trying to generate more scenarios or like more ethical point of view, ethical points. And anyway, I use the generative AI and then to make a kind of views, like the scenery, and for the, and actually, I thought this is interesting about like, we don't really have to worry about like a time limit to having a baby. So then also it opens to older guys too. So everyone can use it for any time for free. So what would be happened? And then, but still maybe having so many kind of program. And then we had, this is how we have done the workshop. And then, we had 3 sessions. And then the first time was, what if like 60 years old women trying to have the baby with this system. And then, but still like the government people trying to kind of choose who can use this system. And actually I'm acting like a 60 years old artist, and then bringing 2 female friends, and then they're gonna support me. And then this is the kind of, he is acting this guy. And then also in this time, ChatGPT joined as a kind of actor. And now he is speaking, right? Or she or it, I don't know how to call. But anyway, so ChatGPT acting as a government AI, and then tell us, actually it's calculate the children's happiness, and then depend on the parent's situation. And it kind of scares me a lot. And then because of the reaction was pretty decent. So anyway, so the second lab or third lab is about TV interview, like a TV show. And then like in this time I was acting as an older guy, and then who never had a chance about being rich, and then he been poor and then being alone, and then like such a person wanted to have a baby. And then the question is, who is able to have a baby with this system? Anyway, we have done this session for 3 hours, and then like I made this film as a 20 minutes short. But anyway, it was quite interesting. And then this time also I used such a post-it system, and then so many comments in the end, and then it was quite interesting. Anyway, maybe I should stop it. I can talk more and more, but anyway. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we're moving into discussion session, and I moderate this part. I'm going to ask questions. So first, Eileen. When you started as an artist, what was it like in the art world?
So I was very worried when you said you were going to ask me about this, because I had just graduated from college, and I became an illustrator, and my first appointment, I got a job at the New York Times illustrating the op-ed page. In those days, you couldn't use a computer to do drawing, so you had to, do it yourself, and I had to do a portrait of Alexander Solzhenitsyn for an article. And I got a check for $25. And I thought, well, fine. And then a friend of mine who was in school with me was a guy. He also got a job at the New York Times to illustrate, and he got a check for $150. And so that was my first, experience with that. I continued to pound the pavement and try to negotiate better rates and all of that. Well, I did that for a while, and then I just moved on to just doing my art. I had the opportunity to live in Central America, in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and I just painted every day and sold a lot of my work and had exhibitions. Came back to the States 3 years later, and then went into the corporate world. And it was really serendipitous. It was an opportunity that fell in my lap with a startup company. And what we did was we researched trademarks and design marks, and we did it in 155 countries. And I really enjoyed that. And I had to manage the company and grow it and build an international sales force. And we had 7,000 attorneys, intellectual property attorneys as our clients. And the company grew. And then we were bought out by the Thompson companies, and that was a good thing. And then I thought, okay, I'm done with lawyers. I'm finished with doing this. I really want to go back to museums because that is my love. So a very good friend of the family was best friends with Michael Bloomberg, a person has a lot of influence, and he sent my resume to every museum in Washington. And I went to lots of appointments to be interviewed to get a job in a museum, and people looked at my resume and said, well, it's very interesting, but we don't know what you could do for us. And finally, the founder of the Women's Museum saw my resume, and she said, I have a job for you. So I started to build committees. I had no idea what a committee was, but I thought I could do it. And she said, in the United States, I want groups that promote women in the arts and the regions where they reside. And so I started doing that. And then I said, what about Europe and South America? And she said, it'll never happen. But as you see now, we are all over the world. And our committees, a very stellar group, like our group in Japan is an extraordinary example, are volunteers who come together to promote women in the arts where they live. And it has really made a difference for many, many artists, especially this Women to Watch program, which focuses on emerging women artists who never get a break. They're great, they've been noticed by museums, but they never get to exhibit in an international show outside of the region where they reside. And so that's kind of how it all happened. But it was a circuitous route, and it's been very rewarding. Anyway, that's how we have I, because what each committee does is identify, for this Women to Watch exhibition, they identify their curator identifies 5 emerging women artists who work either in a particular theme or medium. In this case, New Worlds, which was very broad. And then our curators look at the works of the 5 artists from each of the 31, or in this case, 28 committees, and select one. It's not a winner that gets selected. It's the artist whose works work best with the other art that is going to be in the exhibition. And that's kind of how that happens.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So, Ai-san, I have a similar question to ask you. You have worked in Japan and outside of Japan. As a female artist, could you share with us your experience so far? ティストとして日本国内と海外との経験の違いまたは違ってなければについてちょっと話してもらえますか。
違うんだろうかそうですね、あんまり違いがあるのかと言われると正直分かんない気がするんですが、なんか少なくともアメリカにいた時はなんか結構人種差別を感じたなっていうのはあって、イギリスにいた時はなんか意外とこう、外の人に皆さん慣れてる感じがして、なんかあんまりそれを感じていなかったのですが、でそこでさっきちらっと見えた銃のプロジェクトのことを考えて、アメリカでは。
Was it different between Japan and abroad? Now that you ask, I honestly can't say that I'm absolutely certain that I experienced anything different as a female artist. More so, when I was in the United States, I definitely experienced some racism that I didn't actually, unexpectedly, I didn't experience as much of in the UK. It seemed in the UK, they're just used to outsiders or foreigners much more, or they just don't treat them differently the way they did here. And in fact, you may have seen a flash of it at the end of my PowerPoint, but the gun project that I came up with was based on my experience here in the US.
でプロジェクトっていうのは、それこそ私が MIT にいた時にブラック・ライブズ・マターの話が出てきて、でこの国はやっぱちょっとなんかイギリスとは違うんだなっていうのと、あとやっぱ白人じゃない有色人種であることっていうのがこの国ではなかなかの意味を持っていて、で彼らに向かっている暴力は私に向かっている暴力とは違うんだけれども、なんか同じ根底を持っているんじゃないかなと思っていて、でもプロジェクトっていうのはその銃にカメラをつけて、で顔認識のテクノロジーがそれこそ AI でできてきた中で、銃口の先にいる人っていうのが、警察によって誤解されて殺されやすい人っていうのを、今までそういうふうに殺されてきた犠牲者の人たちの顔写真っていうのを集めて学ばせて、で銃口の先にそういった顔の人が誤解されやすい人の顔っていうのが映ったら、あなたはバイアスで撃とうとしているんじゃないんですかって言って、一瞬銃にロックをかけてあげるっていう、そういう銃があってもいいんじゃないかっていうのを、私が頑張って1ヶ月ぐらいで、デモを作ってみたら一応作れたわけですよねっていう感じのプロジェクトです。
So when I was at MIT, it was right around the time that the Black Lives Matter movement really started gaining strength. And it made me realize how different US was from the UK, and how it made me understand how I was a person of color, that I was not white. And even though the violence towards black and brown folks was different than what I experienced, I still felt sympathy with them. And so what this project was a gun which was a fixed camera that used AI-assisted facial recognition to examine the person or persons that the gun was aimed at. And the facial recognition the AI was taught, given all the photos of people who had been shot by law enforcement before, and calculated the likelihood of who is more likely to be killed or shot at because they were misunderstood. And if the person or persons that the gun was aimed at was fit into that percentage, then the gun would send an alert, and also it would lock the trigger briefly so that the person who was shooting could not automatically pull the trigger. And in fact, it took me a month, but I actually was able to build a workable model for this gun.
そう多分直接の答えにはなってないかもしれないんですけど
So it may not have been a direct answer to your question, but that's what I kind of experienced outside Japan.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Ai-san next question. Go backwards. Can you tell us about your choice of choosing biology and art combining together? How did you come to this choice?
いやこのなんでバイオを選んだかというとやっぱりその子供を持つことっていうのがずっと子供の頃から興味があったけれどもあまりにもやっぱりその時から思い問いすぎて興味があるけど、手が出せないしさっきのジレンマチャートでも子供を持つ持たない養子を取る誰かの代理母になるか代理母を使うかってこの4つのチョイスだけではやっぱり足りないなって思うことがあってで、テクノロジーっていうのと女性っていうのってあまりにもある意味でニーズがあるというかすごい要求があるなと思っていてそこにオルタナティブなものがあったら嬉しいなっていうので興味を持ちました。
So, why biology? I guess I've always been interested in the whole issue of bearing a child. Ever since I was a kid, I always thought about what it meant to bear a child, and had all these questions that, of course, as a kid, I couldn't answer myself. And even the dilemma chart that I showed earlier. There are these 4 options of do I bear a child, do I choose not to bear a child, do I adopt, or do I use a surrogate? And I felt that with this whole issue of technology and being female, that there were just too many demands on myself or us as women. And I was like, there's got to be other alternatives, other options.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Eileen. You've been working at NMWA since late 80s.
Well, actually, 98.
I'm sorry, 90s. Okay. And what are the biggest changes that have taken place since you joined the museum?
So the museum had a founder, and very often, a founder runs a place in a particular way. And our founder, who was definitely ahead of her time, but she brought in a lot of friends who came to a board meeting once a month, and they had lunch, and the founder told them about all the interesting people she had met and all of the interesting things that were happening at the museum. And the board had really very little to do with what actually the workings were at the museum. Over time, that changed a lot, and now we have some very effective, very hardworking board members working together with our director, Susan Sterling. And I would say that's the biggest change, that we've moved to being a more professional organization, which was important for longevity.
And you just completed the renovation
Yes.
project.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what you made the biggest change in the
Right, so
plant?
the building, there had been an earthquake about 10 years ago, and it caused quite a bit of damage to the building, and we realized the building was actually quite unsafe. We have wonderful artworks that weigh several tons, and we could never exhibit any of them because the floors couldn't hold the weight. If you had a work of art that was suspended from the ceiling, we couldn't do that either. And there was asbestos, and the plumbing didn't work. And if it rained inside, and that was a dangerous situation. We used to say water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. And it was, very, very difficult. So it was time. And so we underwent a big capital campaign. We raised $70 million in about a 3-year period. I think the building actually probably costs about $80 million. We did take a mortgage for the rest, but it made a tremendous difference. It just feels, it's so different now. It's light, and the exhibition space is beautiful, and we can bring out all of the works. And the first exhibition after we opened was called The Sky's the Limit, because we hung works from the ceiling and put large pieces on the floor, and it's been very, very exciting.
Thank you. And last question, I think we have one more question. Ai-san, your name, AI, reads AI. What do you think the impact of AI on your profession in general as an artist?
Well, すごい面白いツールが来たなとは思っているし、なんか私も結構いい年になってきて、物忘れがものすごくひどくなってたりとかして、なんかそういう意味でなんかこうなったらいいのになみたいなのをサポートしてくれる使い方とかは本当はできるなと思っていて、だからさっきの銃もそうだし、なんかテクノロジーはだいたい使い方次第だって思うんですけど、その使い方、見えない使い方をうまく面白い盲点を探って使えるようになりたいなって思っていて、そういう意味でなんかそうですね、なんか私の名前子供の頃は愛情ってなんだろうって思ってたし、大人になって英語圏に来ると私とのがわからないし、で今になったら AI の話で私の名前がどこでもあるなみたいな気持ちで AI とは何だろうか、知性とは何だろうか、私とは何だろうかみたいなことを日々考えてて、面白い名前についてはすごい面白いなと思ってます。
So that's, I fundamentally, I think of AI as a very interesting or intriguing tool. And, I'm getting to a certain age where I'm getting more and more forgetful. So it's certainly, I think, helpful. And at the very basics, I feel that it can help support one's imagination. It can help make things that seem less possible more easily realizable. In fact, with just like with the gun, technology is not inherently good or evil. It's good or evil based on how it's used. And so I think AI is very similar. And I think the trick is to find the hidden gems of how AI can be used in positive ways. That is what's crucial. And, going back to the question and how AI is how my name is spelled, when as a child in Japan, I means love. So I always thought, I am love. And then when I went abroad, the way my name is pronounced is I, myself. So it was, I reflected on that part of it. And now going back to the way it's spelled AI, you see my name everywhere, and I see my name everywhere. And yet it also means, the word AI means artificial intelligence. So it makes me think of, I must be intelligent. So I think there's a diversity in that too.
Great. Thank you so much, participants. It was really wonderful to have you here. Thank you, audience, for participating as well.